the mandate of the CGE. That is the legislative framework that we are taking our mandate from. There is international treaties, your CEDAW, there is the Constitution, your Beijing platforms, all the international treaties, and then now we have the domestic ones for our country, your affirmative action policy, employment equity, labor relations, BCA, and then Skills Development Act, CAPUDA, and the BBBE Act. So those kind of acts or legislation are the ones that when we do these programs, we have to revisit them all the time to ensure that we are inclusive in our approaches. We are not leaving anyone behind, and we are listening to the needs and the wishes of the population that we are trying to service or we are trying to bring on board. And then in terms of the CGE's mandate, next slide, we are established in terms of Section 187 of the Constitution, which requires the CGE to promote respect for and the protection, development, and attainment of gender equality. We also have CGE Act number 39 of 1996, which mandates the CGE to monitor and evaluate legislation, policies, and practices of the state, statutory bodies, and the private sector, as well as indigenous, customary, and religious law and practices. The CGE is again empowered to research and make recommendations to Parliament, receive and investigate complaints of gender discrimination, and conduct public outreach and education on gender equality, which is what I am doing today. We have got also additional powers to subpoena and litigate to further our mandate. If you are following the CGE, you will know what each and every year we are calling on departments to say, departments, DSD knows, come and report to the CGE on how far are you in terms of ensuring that the status of our shelters are up to date. Come and tell us about transformation in your sector. How have you mainstreamed youth? How have you mainstreamed women and the rest within your sector? And then because I've already mentioned that we are guided by those list of legislation that I have alluded to. So now we are doing transformation hearings with different departments, including the private sector, your Mercedes, your Mordred, because we are expecting intersectoral collaboration when we're doing this mainstreaming. So if you can only zoom it to government, then the private sector will not transform. So we need everyone to be on board. And then in terms of sexual reproductive health rights, you know, last year in 2020, just in February before the lockdown, we have launched a report, an investigative report about the 48 women who were forcibly sterilized. Okay, who were forcibly sterilized. So that is one of the highlights of the CGE. And then I'm being alerted about time. So let me go. Please go to the slide 10. I'm going to skip a lot because now time is not on my side. Let's talk about equality and equity. When you look at that picture, equality means, okay, let's make an example with a dozen of eggs, 6 eggs. If we all are given 6 eggs, women 6 eggs, without checking where you stay, if you have the fire or the electricity to cook the eggs, how many are you in that household? Will that be a real transformation or real service delivery? So that's what equality says. Equality says give everyone same amount of, if it's X, it's X, if it's water, it's water. But equity says go back, do a need assessment of all these people that you are going to be providing water or providing the eggs or any other service to see if that 6 dozen or that 1 dozen of eggs is gonna accommodate that family. So if you're giving me 6 eggs and I'm having 12 in my household, really, it's not gonna be enough. Okay? If you're giving me 6 eggs and I'm alone, then I can eat the 6 eggs for a week. You get what I'm saying? So equity says go and do a need assessment, because there, these people should watch over, but they didn't recognize their height needs some elevation. But we, in terms of equity, okay, when you are taller, we're not giving you a block. That one is in the middle, we're giving 1 block. That one is shorter, then we're giving 2 blocks or more. So that's what we should do as transformation agents, as departments, to say, let's go and do a need analysis and need identification so that our programs are coherent and reaches the needs of into next slide. Let me not go there. Next slide. You can go to slide 12, empowerment. It can be conceptualized as an emancipation process in which the disadvantaged and empowered are empowered to exercise their rights, obtain access to resources, and participate actively in the process of shaping society and making decisions. This, I always say to people that it can be achieved through gender mainstreaming. Why am I saying so? In gender mainstreaming, we're expected to do 4 things. It's employment equity, where you ensure that people that you employ are women, the same group that I have mentioned below previously, women, youth, persons with disability, and everyone. And then we talk about skills development. We know that women were not skills, women were not educated. Someone just mentioned nicely the colonial context of this, what we are here today. She highlighted that yesterday. So we have to do skills to ensure that we close the skills gap between women and men, between girls and boys. And then the third one, that is triple BEE. In whatever we're doing, we shouldn't see women as recipients of services, but we should see them as developers of the very same services. When you're doing Apollo Lights and you ask the municipality to say, why are you doing Apollo Lights? We'll say, no, for the safety of children and women. Why are you not seeing women as the ones who are going to be the one that is getting this tender to do the very same program or project of installing Apollo Lights and so on and so on. So we shouldn't see women as recipients, but as developers, because we know for a fact that now we are having engineers, women constructors, and so on and so on. And then the fourth one is your policy environment. Policy environment, we should have conducive policy. We create an environment where all these 3 can thrive. So it doesn't matter for you to reach equity levels while you are having high numbers of sexual harassment in your department. So this 4 goes together. So that's how, when we're talking of empowerment and mainstreaming, we are talking about this 4. Then while you're doing it internally, you're also doing it outside with your communities. When there is sanitation program or water project there, you should know, even when you design it, include women and men, because women are the one who carries the water on their head, again, so they can make more inputs than someone who just see the water in the house and wash from it. You get what I'm saying? So if you're leaving them behind, then your programs are not going to be coherent and so on. So I just want to try and wrap up. There is political empowerment, there is women and social empowerment, and there is economic empowerment. I've already alluded to it. I don't have time. And then let me go to some of the barriers that are inhibiting our progress. I've already spoken about COVID, but at the same time, it needs us to go back to the drawing board to say, how do we recover from the current state that we are in? We need to go to the, and even plan for further disasters that may hit us, because it came to us as a shock. We were never planned. Our health systems were not that up to standard. So it needs us to have a longer vision to say, should we have any other crisis, we should find us ready. So in that disaster management that we're going to be trying to develop and ensure that we are ready, we should include everyone. So we have cultural norms and expectations that will say, when as mama, you must stay at home, when as baba, you must go and work. So those are kind of stereotypes that we should break whenever we get a chance. And then negative perception, and then we have to invest in female entrepreneurs. We shouldn't, I always tell to people that, hey, I wish Zimbabwe, we can copy from Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, when you are doing your grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're also doing a certain skills. Either you're a carpenter or electrician and so. So for as long as you don't get the formal employment, then you know you can start your business here, electrician or carpentry, and then you can be an employer instead of seeking for employment. So we need to copy from other countries and ensure that whether I'm studying academically, there should be a skill that is going to help me, and so on. And then we should advance the services and ensure that there is access to these services, access to these opportunities on an equitable efficient, so that no one is left behind. And then gender mainstreaming, I already alluded that it is one of the tools towards reaping the benefit of demographic dividend, towards transforming our sectors, towards transforming our societies, and it should be everyone's responsibility to ensure that gender mainstreaming is pushed forward and it is implemented so that at the end of the day, all the gains that were reversed by COVID can be recovered again, and we even work better going forward. And then we know there is no one who's going to not be attend class because there is no data or because digital transformation is an issue. So I think in those few words, I would like to thank everyone who listened to this presentation, and I will ensure, because this is a very lengthy presentation, I will share the presentation with the organizers of this event so that you can just have it and read it during your spare time, because I have really skipped a lot of things, but gender equality is important for demographic dividend. There is no other way. As long as you're going to be dealing with the population, there is gender within that population. I thank you.
Can we give another round of applause? Thank you so much, Mayor Khutso. Thank you so much, Khutso, for that very passionate input that you have made. And I could tell that you are possessed in spirit as you were reflecting at the beginning. I saw you even leaving the podium, but I said, but because she's in spirit, she shouldn't leave the pulpit, because they go together. The possession and the passion that was oozing, that's I could tell. And thank you so much for that. And we're looking forward to receive your presentation. We understand it's very detailed, but we appreciate that you could be able to share with us in the very, very limited minutes that was allocated for you to make your input. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me pleasure to be welcoming Dr. Nolwazi Dlamini, also from the Population and Development Unit in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. And I did indicate earlier that she will be sharing with us the case study of the demographic dividend as it happened in the province, without diluting stories, but I'm sure we'll learn quite a lot. Over to you, Mam Dlamini. Thank you. Welcome on stage.
Thank you, Acting DDG. Good morning, colleagues, the ones that are joining us online and who are present here. I'm greeting you all. Let me start by thanking this opportunity from our National Social Development Population Unit to invite us as well to be part of this session. two of them that are already showing the real transition in terms of demographic dividend. This is the explanation of demographic dividend. I'm going to jump because my colleagues, they already explained what it means. The demographic dividend is an evidence in terms of economic development phenomena and the focus of nearly 20 years in research by the economists and demographers as also health scientists. It is a potential growth in the country, the economic result from the change of the age structure, as I mentioned before, of its population. The economic growth increases all the proportion of working age and population grows during the demographic transition. The next slide is showing the population pyramids that are already starting to show the change in terms of the age structure. When you look at 1996, we had a lot of age from 5 to 10, as well as 10 to 15. And then our 0 to 4 was less than 5 to 10 age. When you look at 2019 and 2011, demographic transition is already showing from our population pyramids for our province. You can see now the age back from the young people and also the stability in terms of the aging population as well as the decline in terms of fertility. I just choose two population pyramids in terms of two districts. eThekwini district and Umkhanyakude. When you look at eThekwini, it's already on the transition period, where now they need to look at their young people, to look at the opportunities for young people in order to address their issues. And then when you look at Umkhanyakude, you can see that it's not yet there in terms of the transition. I also didn't put Ilembe. Ilembe is already following Itegu, where it's already also starting to show the number of young people and also the stability in terms of the aging and the declining in terms of fertility. Which means that the provincial government need to start grabbing the opportunity of this transition and making sure that all the development in terms of addressing young people issues is in place and is integrated to all plannings in our provincial government. Let me jump this slide as well because it's also trying to explain what are the benefits, but it also goes with the definition of demographic dividends, where we are looking at the fertility declining and opening the window in terms of harnessing the adequate investment, looking at health and education, especially on young people, girls' education, maternal, newborn and child health and comprehensive reproductive health services, including family planning. Currently, we are facing a challenge of the decline of the uptake of family planning amongst young people. I think as government, as civic society, we need to address this one and see how best we can encourage our young people to go back to our clinics and improve the uptake of family planning. The next slide, jump that one, yes, yes. This one, it shows the pillars in terms of the demographic dividend, looking at the health and well-being, looking at the education, skills development, entrepreneurship and youth empowerment. Those are the wheels and the pillars of demographic dividend. This one is very important because when you look at the challenges that we are faced now as young people, I'm still young at heart, the main issue that we are facing, when we are looking at the community survey of 2016, our statistics started to show us that amongst Black people, especially young people from secondary education, they were already starting to leave the school. And now the rate of early dropouts amongst Black people is getting higher. We have a high early dropouts of around 60%, and it has been increased since COVID-19 from 2020. What it says to us as government, as civic society, as planners, which means as we are facing the issue of unemployment, there is an early dropout. The issue of skills development needs to be attended because the high rate of unemployment is not going to be decreased. Instead, it's going to increase because of those young people who are leaving school early, without finishing matric, without finishing secondary level. I so wish our education system can be addressed. Because when you look at social development is trying to develop skills development for young people, but it's not going to address the challenge that we are facing. If our education system can address the skills development at an lower educational level, the challenge of unemployment and skills development will be able to be addressed. Because now the population of young people without education, without secondary level, is getting higher. And then the shortage of skills development among young people is getting higher, and the unemployment goes high as well. So our education system needs to be addressed, because those are the ones who are going to give us challenges in terms of crime, in terms of substance abuse, in terms of all social ills. Teenage pregnancy is amongst them. So we need to look at that one as government, how best we can address the issue of early dropouts, because it's causing us a havoc. We also need to improve in terms of governance. From this exercise in KwaZulu-Natal, we also presented it to our social cluster and political cluster, because we're requesting our political principals also to adopt this as one of the things that needs to be evaluated when we are dealing with the IDPs and DDMs from the part of e-governance of IDPs and DDMs. So at the moment, the outcome is positive. The next slide is just showing what was the aim of this exercise. We're just assessing the mainstreaming of demographic dividend into IDP and district plans. We also look at the recommendations after we looked at an assessment, and then we also provide a working session in terms of advocacy and workshops to advocate all the IDP and DDM practitioners how they should look at the gender mainstreaming and demographic dividend mainstreaming into their plans. And then afterwards, we are in the preparation of the policy brief, because it needs to be also noted in terms of our policies. The KZN stakeholders, it's our UNFPA, Social Development, COCTA, SALGA, 36 South Africa, CGE, all municipalities, Office of the Premier, and members of the executives. The challenges of the project, the main challenge that are being faced by the planners is an issue of data. This is an issue that needs to be addressed, and I'm thinking that population units need to play a huge role in terms of contributing how to address this data issue. But we can't address this issue alone. We need our colleagues from tertiary institutions, from research institutions, to work with us together so that we can look at the gaps. And also the research agenda needs to be developed in terms of looking at the gaps that we have and try and forge the partnership with a research institution so that the issue of data gap can be addressed. In the province, we took a decision that we will need to look at the Population Council as we are supported by the Population Policy of 1998. This request is already presented to our ESCO and it was approved. Now we are waiting to take it to our social cluster so that it can go up to the cabinet and the Population Council will be formulated. It's where the sittings will look at the data gaps with all colleagues in the province, and then they will also responsible for overseeing the research agenda of the province and also see how best the postgraduate students, when they are doing their thesis and dissertation, how they can contribute to this issue of gap, a data gap that we have. The findings, we need to work together, as I mentioned before, as all stakeholders need to unite and work together in terms of assisting the municipalities to integrate the demographic dividend, the gender mainstreaming, the IDP managers, as well as the DDM managers. You can move from this slide as well. We also find out that we need to improve in terms of the profiling of the vulnerable groups so that we'll be able to address their challenges, and then it will assist us to plan accordingly. We also need to provide support in terms of gender mainstreaming, as I alluded to look at how the IPs, the DDM, also incorporate the gender mainstreaming into their plans. But also, it's not only municipalities, also government departments need to make sure that they incorporate the demographic dividends into their plans when we are doing that, our strategic plannings, because it's not only for municipalities, but it's for the entire government. We also need the political buy-in, and then the municipalities will also be able to implement what is needed to be implemented. I already alluded to this slide in terms of the engagement that we had after the exercise, where we presented the outcome of the exercise to our principals, to our COCTA, to our mayors and MMs. And from this exercise, we are not leaving out ISPLUMA because it also needs data for their plans as well. So they are part of us as well. The recommendations is to support the implementation of mainstreaming of demographic dividend into our government plannings. The last one, delivering the world where every pregnancy is wanted, every childbirth is safe, every young person potential is fulfilled. Thank you, colleagues. That's my last slide.
Thank you, Dr. Dlamini. I'm not sure what does it mean, Jack, because I thought this agenda is mainly for demographers, and by and large, those people are more quantitative, I'm saying, you know. But I'm looking at how we've been managing time. I'm not sure if it's a problem with the planners or it's a problem with everyone general as demographers. And even those that are aspiring demographers, and I'm sure they're falling into this space. But thank you so much. And I think it was quite useful. We understand what is happening in KZN, because it's always good to have these case studies, because you are now reflecting in one of the provinces, and we want to encourage our counterparts Jack, and see if we can go to other provinces and encourage them to do the same analysis, especially with the effect of COVID, because some of the not necessarily, whilst we've got very soft or invisible borders within the provinces, but that intra-border, intra-provincial, because of COVID, you know, at level. And I'm sure some of these things have been affected. We have seen issues as well with the Northern Cape and Gauteng, issues of reported increase on pregnancy, especially for children, you understand? And let's begin to track some of those particular elements, and you could do like provincial specific analysis to this extent. And especially also this is in line, Jack, with the DDM as by the president, because it begins then to tell you exactly where do we need to target and focus our intervention, so that we are able to improve the quality of lives, because that's what data is there to assist us to do, so that we are able to see these population dynamics and be able to improve in terms of targeting with the services that you provide. Colleagues, you see, ladies and gentlemen, for those that are here and outside, and I'm sure we have seen the recent spark again, I will call it a spark of the load shedding. So we are in that particular space, and I'm sure all of us, you've been shouting and screaming at home. Yesterday, I know in my house, we experienced about 4 load sheddings of 2.5 hours each, and that's what it is. And so that has serious implications and effects on our network in terms of connectivity. And I want to appeal to everyone to bear with us, and you are not alone. And for those that are online, that have been kicked in and out of the system, and it's something that is happening within the greater Johannesburg, and we are finding ourselves. And the word says this will be Thursday, but I wasn't sure if it's this Thursday, tomorrow I don't want to be held accountable, or I'm not part of FESCOM, or it's next Thursday. So I'll wait until I see that Thursday, but tomorrow I know it is Thursday, but the word said it should be until Thursday. Ladies and gentlemen, so I want to get an indication, trying to get another speaker as well who has been experiencing these challenges in terms of connectivity, who is Buiswa, but what we are still trying to connect with her, or I should not take for granted that to say it's her, but I want to be sure at least there's a commission for gender. I want to be sensitive towards that, and we need to get an indication if there are any other questions, and I'm sure there will be those that are coming from the floor here, or there could be those that are online, and I could be assisted in that regard. But following that, it will then come to the end of this first session, and then we take a very short break of about 10 minutes, and then prepare for a panel discussions where we'll be receiving our young lions who will be taking through that particular discussion session. on the focus between the ages of 25 and 24 age cohorts. There's a very specific topic they'll be talking about. Can I get indication from the floor? I don't see any hand. It's not too bright. I still eat my carrots so I can see. There's one gentleman at the end. And there's a lady. I don't want to, once I start saying, at least because I know you and I recognize you, I say your name, I'll be discriminating. But I'm seeing two hands, and please introduce yourself and where you're coming from, and then please raise your question or your comment, and we welcome the comments as well. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Program Director. My name is Dr. George Tsibani from Black Business Council. Thank you, Dr. Tlamin, for your presentation. And you have touched a lot around the age group that you have mentioned. We recently done a socio-economic study of water and sanitation in all municipalities in South Africa. We find similar findings in terms of what you are coming up with. For that, I want to say thank you very much for that. The question, though, that is critical to me is the fact that we are part of the SADC region. In other words, most of the population trends should consider the issue of Southern Africa and how that impacts in terms of that generation, the trends that we are matching up. The second area of concern is that, as I'm saying, I'm coming from the water sector in particular. We share a lot of boundaries and so forth. Is there an initiative to address those issues? Because some of the social pathologies, including, among others, the so-called xenophobia questions, are based on issues of not having an integrated SADC region programs. For instance, if you talk KZN, there's no difference between you and Swaziland, Eswatini, as well as Mozambique. And that to me is a critical factor in terms of spinning the numbers that we are talking about. Last but not least is the issue of saying, to what extent is the migration affecting your trends? Thank you very much.
Please introduce yourself as well and try to speak louder. I was advised that it's okay to remove your mic because the audio becomes difficult if you have it and try to talk. Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Busi Malaza. I'm from the Department of Social Development. Thank you so much for both the two presenters. That was a good presentation. I've got one question for each of the presenters. The first one is in relation to the Commission on Gender Equality. I just want to find out whether the Tutuzela centers that are here in the country, whether are they managed by CCG, and at the same time, whether those Tutuzela centers, are they accessible to all the communities, one in terms of their numbers in the country and in respective provinces? Because to our understanding, they were created so as to close the gaps for the issues of gender-based violence to be addressed. And the second question is on the second speaker, that we really appreciate the highlighting the issue of the case study of KwaZulu-Natal, and we believe other provinces are going to learn from KwaZulu-Natal so that they can do similar interventions. My interest is on whether the municipalities that you are supporting, whether are they trying at this stage to make sure that within their current plans, the IDPs, as well as the district development plan, whether are they looking at the demographics in terms of mainstreaming demographic dividend and highlighting that in particular within their situational analysis so that when they plan, they consider all those demographics for each municipality. Thank you.
There's one more hand right here in the front. And I'm sure we'll be concluding because I don't see any other hand from the colleagues and partners who are here on the floor. And I will be assisted if there will be any hand that is online so that we also acknowledge those who are joining us virtually. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay. My name is Sharon Mukhale. I'm one of the youth panelists attending here today. I'm a medical student from UCT. I wanted to ask a question maybe to both panelists about gender equality. Doctor, you spoke about how we are sort of leaving men and boys behind, and I agree with that, but someone might argue that women are still very much far behind in terms of attaining, success and being, treated fairly, as described by Askhumuto there. And I just wanted to ask, so what are the tools that maybe the CGE has in place to measure how far we are in terms of achieving gender equality? And what are those tools currently showing you in terms of how far we are in terms of attaining gender equality, and whether or not there is now a gap that's forming between men and women in terms of now women are way ahead of men in terms of success and access to opportunities. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Whilst we are checking if there are any colleagues that will be requesting, asking questions from online, I think I want to give to my two eminent speakers to respond as the 4 questions that have been posed to them. And I'm sure from the last speaker you can tell how vibrant and will be the discussions coming from the panelists and from the richness of the questions. But over to you, Khutso, as well as Dr. Dlamini, as to respond on the 4 questions that have been raised. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the questions. I'm going to be addressing the 2 out of 4. Let me start from the questions that was raised by my colleague from DSD. You may remember that the Minister of Police, Minister Bheki Cele, have identified or categorized 30 police stations across the country as the GBVF hotspots. Ne? So now, out of the 30 police stations, Gauteng alone accounts for 11. So it means GBVF incidents and in Gauteng are more, because if Gauteng is accounting for 11 and then we are left with 19, so then it is shared amongst the 8 provinces. So can you see, GBV in Gauteng is a very concerning issue. So now, even prior that, the Commission, I have explained that we are a monitoring institution. So we have a program where we monitor SAPs. Reason behind our monitoring is because you will find a lot of complaints saying, I have reported a GBV case, the person was not arrested, I didn't even get a case number, and all those other kind of complaints that you may get from your, or I went to a shelter was full, or I went to a shelter, I slept on the floor. So those are the kind of issues that we get from our, and then you will find other complaints from our sex workers to say we are being even abused by the very same police that we are expecting them to protect us. So we have this program where we monitor to say, why is it taking so long for cases to be forever within the magistrate or not being dealt with according to the procedures of SAPS or even procedures of court? And then now, in terms of the shelters, I can say DSD accounts for a certain number of shelters. The Department of Community Safety also has shelters, and then the Justice then have to zealous. These shelters, I can say they were previously adequate for the population, but given the current statistics and the hotspots that were mentioned by the police, they are not adequate. Even if they are there, they are not, you cannot move from your house and go and sleep on the floor. And one other issue that was raised when we were doing this monitoring, it was that we also need a shelter for the LGBTIQ plus community. Because if one person goes to a binary shelter where it accommodates only women, for instance, and then that person gets there, he said, no, we cannot accommodate you in this shelter because you are an LGBTI. So those are the kind of issues that we got. Or for instance, a lady is coming with the children. They will say, no, in this shelter we can only accommodate you, and then we can accommodate the children, but there is no space. Remember, with the issue of social distancing and the capacity, a lot of women were turned away because the shelters were fully capacitated, and they also wanted to align to the protocols of COVID-19. So I can safely say the shelters are not enough, and then we even motivated and rather recommended in the hearings that we have with DSD and community service to say we're having a lot of working unused facilities, unused flats and so on in different towns within Gauteng. Why don't we invest on those and turn them into shelters? We know we've got NGOs that also have shelters, your Power and the likes. Power has the nicest one, which looks like almost like a hotel, where you are having your bachelor. If you're having children, you'll be having your 2-bedroom and so. So you are really feeling the comfort of saying, no, I'm a victim. But now with the current situation, you find that someone who is a perpetrator in a correctional service center is even reaping more benefits than someone who is a victim who cannot even get access to a shelter. So those are the kind of issues that we all the time try to communicate and talk to the key departments to ensure that we improve on this kind of thing. I'm not saying that the perpetrators should not eat, but we should just try to standardize and remember that life is important, and we have to get all the services that you need, including nutrition and shelter in instances of GBVF. And then now, we talked about gender equality, how far we are. The DDG, acting DDG may confirm to say we have targets that are set aside in terms of, I will just give an example, employment equity. We've got set aside targets where they will say we need, in terms of employment equity, we need this number of women at SMS. But I want to tell you, it's few of the departments that says they have achieved that. And I even tell people, I am worried about why are we saying we want equity at SMS? Are we gonna promote a woman from a cleaner to be an SMS? Why are we not talking about equity across all levels? You know for a fact, or if an SMS member leaves, I've already have a pool of skill within the middle management. I've already have a pool of skill within the junior management. So it's a matter of, you get on. So now we are saying SMS, but now are we going to take a woman from cleaning to becoming an SMS for us to get the equity? So hence I'm saying let's mainstream throughout. Let's mainstream across all the ranks. So there are a lot of tools. There's gender transformation is another tool. There's also a gender barometer where we can say, you know, there is still an issue of gender wage gap, but we have closed it within the government structures because you know if you are an SMS, is that salary and nothing else. But in the private sector, there is still that gender wage gap. There is still that class ceiling. That is why when we are doing transformation hearings, we also call upon Mercedes-Benz, we also call upon, and then I always say construction, why are we only having flags, women as the ones who are holding the flag? If there's a construction project going on, building of a tar road and so on and so on, you find women pass. Why are they not doing the actual construction of this very? So we should also look into that. So we are still far. And people will get offended to say we are more on women empowerment. No, we are not. Remember, gender mainstreaming and gender equality is about closing the gaps. So if a gap is that women are not represented in the judiciary or women are not represented in the parliament and so on, why are we then now bringing more men? We will not reach the equality that we are seeking. So men should just understand to say, if it's more on women, it means they are overpopulated in that area. Now we are looking for male nurses because we know the nursing industry is populated with women. So it's just to balance the scales. So let me pause there.
Each one has their own social distancing mic.
Yes, thank you, colleagues. We need to balance the equation. That's all I can say. At the moment, the equation is imbalance. The gap, you can see the gap. Boys are left behind. Girls, they are well equipped. I can just take one example of the project that we had as government, even the private sectors. We had a program called Take a Girl Child to Work. We left the boy child behind, and we forgot that this girl child is going to be married with that boy child that was left behind. So what we have to do now is to close the gap. The equation needs to be balanced if we really want to address the issues that we have of gender, GBV in the country. So the equation is imbalance. So we need to address that. My colleague from Water, thank you. I would like to have your report as well, because you said it's covered all municipalities. I would like to have that report so that it can also assist us. We are still having a challenge in government. I will talk about government because I'm in government. We do have this evidence in terms of our population concerns or population dynamics. But the challenge that we are still facing, even within my department, social development, when we are doing our plannings, we don't consider the evidence. Our plannings are still based on thumb-sucking theory. So that theory planning or thumb-sucking planning, it led us not be able to address the challenges of our population. That's a reason we see our communities toying, because we are not really touching the needs of our population. That's where the challenge is. In terms of integrating our programs, we are not yet there. Our programs are not integrated as we would like to see the integration in terms of addressing our young people issues. So I'm also looking at DDG to his level. He also needs to contribute how we can take this up and implement the evidence-based planning and integration. A population unit need to be seen in all directorates of social development, need to inform the planning of all directorates of our social, let me take social development, because a population unit got a directorate that deals with evidence. So that evidence should inform the planning of government. And also, it's not only social development, but the entire government as a whole needs to drive the evidence-based planning and integration so that we'll be able to address the population concern, especially for our young people. The issues that I highlighted there cannot be addressed alone by a single department, by a single civic society or private sector. But it needs us all to integrate our services and respond accordingly. As I mentioned when I was presenting, the issue of dropout was seen since 2016. But the question is, what have we done to address that issue? Because we have seen it from 2016, that's now our black kids are living out from school. What have we done to address that challenge? I'm not sure whether we have started anything, but look at 2020. The 36 is going higher and higher. Our kids have drawn out from school. Dramatically, it's 36 is really unbelievable. So my question is, when are we going to sit together and address that? Our DDG is going to take it to social development, just to have an integration within social development to address that. In terms of migration, immigration is affecting us. We did an exercise in KZN where we're looking at the migration. Our young people in KZN are moving out from KZN here to Joburg because one issue of unemployment. So I think it's something also need to be addressed by provincial government to look at it and see how best we can arrange or address the issues of economical opportunities, also to grabbing the opportunity of the demographic dividend as we are in a transition. Going back to a question of municipalities, IDP, district development plan, situational analysis, we are as population unit working with them to assist them with their situational analysis in terms of making sure that all the necessary indicators that need to be part of the situational analysis are there. But there's still a challenge with municipalities. I'm also hoping UDGG can also take it to his level. The challenge with municipalities, they are not keen in terms of addressing the soft issues. They will tell you that our mandate is to deal with infrastructure. And then they will leave behind the soft issues, of which are the sharping pin that are affecting especially young people. So we are also trying to do something. That's why we said we want a support from our political principals so that we can slowly changing the main focus of municipalities, because the soft issues also need to be addressed by the municipalities, not alone being supported by the government sectors as well. Yeah, I think I'm fine.
Thank you so much, colleagues, for those responses, and I think they were as adequate and clear. And I received the challenges posed to me, and one in these platforms, such delegations happen, and I'm used to that, Dr. Dlamini. And it's part of these things we must do as well, because it comes back to us, as to say, whilst the work that you do is just not for DSD, but for the rest of government, the fact that you've been housed there, to what extent can we really unpack these plans that we have in terms of the MTSF? We are in the APP planning process right now, that even that targeting that they will say they want to do is informed by these population trends. And so that you challenge to say, why would you want to target 30% of young girls or of men? You want to do the anti-gangsterism program, let's unpack them. Really, and so that we start there, is one of the exercises. I'm not trying to impose a KPA for Mr. Van Zedem, but I'm saying it could be one of those beautiful things we do in terms of juxtaposing these plans against these population trends as we know them, and to see exactly what is the logic. And we start there, and then we can move from there. But we want to thank you so much for your time, as well as the very eloquent presentations that you've made with us. As I did indicate, colleagues, that we're really having serious challenges when it comes to getting our other speaker, Ubuyiswa, Pini from the DPE, to share with us on the comparative sexuality education. And as a result, we are forced then to move towards that 15 minutes or 10-15 minutes comfort break, just 10 minutes, strictly 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and check if she's still available. But if she's not, but I want to assure you, all presentation, including hers, we have it, and they will be posted in our website, www.dsd.gov.za. all presentations from yesterday, including today, will be posted in our website, which includes the presentation by Buyiswa that ought to have been done by Buyiswa. Because of continuity challenges, we can't have, but we'll keep on trying again after 10 minutes, and if not, we'll then proceed with our panel discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all welcome to have tea and break, including those that are online. Please go and grab anything that you want to have as well, and then come back in 10 minutes. That will be exactly at 10:50. Thank you so much. Let's have a short break. Thanks.